Sheffield at the moment. I think something we're really proud of. I work for Sheffield Chamber of Commerce. We're one of 52 accredited chambers in the UK and 13,000 around the world. We collaborate hugely in Sheffield with our South Yorkshire Chamber colleagues and with the public sector, the private sector, anchor institutions in Sheffield. So the funding and resource is important in this paper, but fundamentally I think the most important point is the devolution of power to the local areas and to the local authorities and to the local decision makers, and really getting that into the hands of the communities.
Would you be worried, though, that all this devolution potentially it risks just creating another level of bureaucracy, another tier of local government?
Yeah, I think that could be a reality. I think something that we're very conscious of is we need to hold the government to account on this, that these promises need to be delivered on. There's a huge amount of work for us to do, but we're certainly galvanised and ready and prepared and willing to do that work. As I say, there's some really strong evidence in our region of where collaboration has paid dividends and is bearing fruit. So I think we're committed and we're ready, and we want to make the most of it. I think, as I say, there's a healthy level of scepticism, but equally we're very grateful that there's recognition that the devolution of decision making, we've got to move away from the central government holding the power, holding the money and holding the purse strings. Ultimately we know what's best for our local areas, our communities know what's best for them, and it's time to empower our communities to be able to make the best of the resources that we have available.
Louisa, what do you make of the mission on transport? I mean, he wants to bring transport networks closer in standards to London. But I mean, I was in Sheffield fairly recently, and I've got to say the road network around the city is much, much better than anything we've got in London. You can certainly move around more easily.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I'm a huge advocate for Sheffield, and I think where we're positioned in the country, we're extremely central. We have great transport links all around, which is why we've seen, during the pandemic, lots of people move to Sheffield because they get all the benefits of countryside living whilst having a city and still have, amazing connectivity around. There's still a lot of work to do with regards to our public infrastructure, with regards to actually getting around the city. Sheffield's quite large, actually. I think people underestimate that. So, from one side of the city to the other side of the city, it can be quite difficult to travel on our current public transport system. So it would be really beneficial for the movement of workers and for people to train and skills and colleges and students and so on. If that could be improved, that's certainly something that's a top priority for us in this region.
All right, Louisa, thanks for joining me today. Hopefully hear more from you in future as the regeneration gets underway.
Pleasure. Thanks very much.
Let me talk you now through some of the other day's business stories. And the banking giant Santander has reported a sharp rise in profits after releasing money it had set aside to cover potential bad debts during the pandemic. Well, the Spanish lender reported a net profit of €2.28 billion for the final 3 months of 2021, making a total of €8.12 billion for the year as a whole. That compared with a loss of €8.77 billion during 2020. Well, in the UK, where it's the third biggest mortgage provider, Santander reported a pre-tax profit for the year of £1.9 billion. That was up 233% on 2020. The lender said it expected the impact of the Omicron variant on the UK economy to be limited, but it also warned that it expects tougher competition in the mortgage market this year. A rise in customers in Germany, its biggest single market, has helped Vodafone to sales of €11.7 billion during the final 3 months of 2021. That was up 4.3% on the same period in 2020. Well, the mobile and broadband operator grew sales by 1.1% in Germany and by 0.9% in the UK, where it now has almost 1 million broadband customers. Well, Nick Reed, the chief executive, said it was a solid quarter, but there was no word from the company on CVN, the activist investor, which has just become a Vodafone shareholder and which is agitating for change. And the world's second biggest diamond producer says it's seen robust demand for rough diamonds during the first sales cycle of the year. De Beers said that rough diamond sales from the 17th of January to yesterday came in at $660 million. That compared with $336 million during the previous sales cycle, which ran from the 6th to the 22nd of December. Well, the figures come amid speculation that De Beers and its larger rival, the Russian miner Alrosa, have recently raised rough diamond prices by between 5 to 8%, reflecting strong demand in particular from the United States and China. Now, high street shoppers have been hit by the highest price rises in almost a decade. The British Retail Consortium's latest shop price index, compiled with Nielsen IQ data, shows that annual inflation almost doubled over the last month. Shop price inflation jumped from 0.8% in December to 1.5% in January. Well, joining me now is Helen Dickinson. She's Chief Executive of the British Retail Consortium. Helen, welcome to you. I mean, there are two components to this. There's non-food and food, and we'll take them in turn. I mean, with non-food, to what extent does this represent retailers passing on higher costs, or is there an element of them trying to bolster their margins in this as well?
It's 110% the former, not the latter. So what we've seen over the course of the last few months, and particularly some of it driven by the pandemic, some of it driven by wider economic factors, headlines that you've talked about on this show, supply chain problems, increasing in freight costs, labour shortages, that's pushing up wages. So there is a right across the piece, a plethora of costs, input costs that are going into businesses, some of which they are needing to pass on to their customers.
I mean, in this inflationary environment, is there much to be gained for retailers by taking a short-term hit to their margins to try and win market share?
Well, I think some of them are indeed doing that or looking for efficiencies within the business, and certainly they're not passing on all the cost increases that they're seeing, because the input type inflation is at a much higher level than what we're seeing in terms of the shop prices that we've put out today. And I think the other thing that's quite interesting is, while there is a significant increase that you highlighted between what's happened in December and what's happened in January, and as we expect will continue through the course of 2022, this is just one part of the sort of wider inflation headline numbers that are being impacted by all sorts of other things like energy costs, travel costs, that potentially will hit those consumers that are in lower income brackets hardest.
Worth pointing out, Helen, that in some sectors of retail, people are passing on price increases just because there's very, very strong demand. I mean, in the luxury goods sector, for example, I saw Hublot, the Swiss watch manufacturer, they said last week they were putting up prices just because they could get away with it. There was just so much demand for the product. I mean, luxury goods are in a quite specific place right now, aren't they?
They are, and I suppose what that really highlights is, depending on what category you're talking about, what segment of the market, whether it's at that more expensive end or at the more value end of the market, what that competitive environment looks like. And certainly across most categories and across most segments, that competition is very fierce, and so people will be thinking very hard before they pass on any cost increases to their customers, because they know that, particularly in backdrop post the pandemic, where we as customers have become much more shrewd in how we shop, being able to shop around, doing our research, much of which we can do from home, we will really make sure that we are finding the best offers in terms of price, in terms of other service policies from the people we buy from. So retailers are very cognizant of the environment in which they're operating and ensuring that they're remaining as competitive as they can.
And Helen, with regard to food price inflation specifically, traditionally it took between 7 and 10 months for price increases in raw materials and so forth to feed through to shop shelves. Do you get the sense that that's happening this time around, or has that time frame shortened?
I think we are still in that transition with that feeding through. So as you say, the price increases, the cost increases in many commodities that go into our food, that will take a number of months to feed through, because many retailers or their suppliers buy forward some of those commodities. So the price is fixed until those contracts come up for renewal. And that is the case not just with food commodities, but also in terms of cotton, or in terms of things like freight costs or energy costs. Many of the larger businesses are able to tie in prices that will come up for renewal when those contracts renew. And as that happens over a period of time, then that will start to filter in the business. the leaderships of those businesses will have their decisions to make about how much they absorb into margins, how much they can find inefficiencies, and how much, unfortunately, they may need to pass on to their customers.
All right, Helen, good to see you as ever. Thanks for joining me today. And staying with the topic of inflation, a bit of breaking news for you that we've had in the last few minutes. Inflation in the 19 countries using the euro has hit a record level for the third month in a row, reaching 5.1%. Well, the figure breached a record of 5% in December and 4.9% in November, and this is the highest since records began being kept in this way in 1997. Now, the world's main oil exporting nations will meet virtually today to discuss output and global supplies. OPEC has faced pressure from top consumers such as the US and India to pump more to help the global economic recovery from the pandemic. Well, joining me now is Bjorn Tornhagen. He is a head of oil markets at Rystad Energies. Bjorn, morning to you. I mean, OPEC and its allies, the OPEC Plus grouping, as we call them, they've pledged to raising output by 400,000 barrels a day this year. Are they able to do that?
Yeah, that is a good question, because so far they've actually failed to deliver on that pledge to increase by 400,000 barrels per day per month, but due to various reasons. And since this is a collective agreement where each of the 20 countries have their own targets to increase by, some of those countries actually have not been able to increase at all. So hence, the overall output has not yet been able to increase by as much as they have planned to do.
And which are the countries that are struggling to raise output?
Well, first and foremost, there have been problems in Nigeria due to various infrastructure issues that country, from time to time has been plagued with. We've also seen a little bit of underperformance from one of the powerhouses, Russia, actually, due to also various reasons, but also concerns about the actual Russian capacity to increase production by a significant amount, in general. So those two in particular, while the Middle Eastern producers such as Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, etc., they have been able to produce more or less in line with their pledge.
Now, a few years ago, we were all talking about how the swing producer globally had switched from being the Saudis to the US shale sector. I mean, are the US shale producers able to come riding to the rescue this time around?
I mean, in terms of resources in the ground, yes, they would be. That has not basically changed, let's say, compared to, let's say, 5 years ago. But this is totally up to, let's say, the strategy of each of these independent producers, the super majors, and also an increasing share of private equity-backed producers as well, and how they would, let's say, like to manage their cash flows. So there's still capital discipline among many of the independents in the U.S. shale patch is still prevalent. So it means that we will see production additions, but they could definitely be producing more if they spent more on drilling and completion activities in the U.S. shale.
Very good point. I mean, and you would think that they would do so given the elevated levels of crude prices right now.
Yes, that's a very good point. With Brent, WTI, the U.S. Crude production benchmark flirting with $90 a barrel, that's far above a break-even level of those kinds of investments. So I think what normally has happened is that the U.S. shale producers have been burnt by investing too much in the past, and especially when the anticipation is that OPEC and the OPEC Plus agreement still has let's say a material spare production capacity to bring onto the market still. There will be, let's say, conservatism and some restraint in drilling and completion by the shale companies. But if it turns out to be that the OPEC producers do not have much extra to put into the market, I think that would be, let's say, the start signal of maybe some increased spending and production increases from the United States as well.
All right, Bjorn, we have to leave it there. Thanks very much for joining me today. Appreciate you joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Well, still to come here on Ian King Live, we'll have a look at how global markets are doing this Wednesday morning. Stay with us.
I was invited to DJ at a ski party, and I saw my friends do this thing up close and personal, and I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. My friends literally turning into superheroes right there in front of my eyes. And I vowed that I wanted to be able to do this sport with them. And so 2 months later, in February of 2016, I had my first lesson in Whistler in Canada. It's the best thing. I absolutely love being out in the mountains. Look at Jackson Hole in that photo there. I mean, look how beautiful that is. It's absolutely incredible to be out in the mountains, exercising, waking up with the sun or even before the sun on most days, and just being active. It's a complete shift from my life of being a vampire living in nightclubs and going to festivals. And so I'm relishing this change as I approach my 40s. Oh, there's no fear of breaking bones at all. I mean, I'm proficient at skiing, and that's why I qualified. The course is not going to be easy. They're probably going to be 90 athletes that are going to go out there and beat the course up before I get my chance to go out there. But no, I mean, our skis are as sharp as razor blades, and I've cut my hands on them a million times. But no, this is just like showing up at the office. I like to consider myself a global citizen, born in England to a Jamaican father and an English mother, left England in 2006, and have basically lived all over the world for the last 16 years. Yeah, I haven't had the chance to meet up with the bobsled guys and girl just yet. We interact a lot on social media, and we're all super excited to get out there and do this thing for our country. So I can't wait to meet them. I've already been sent all of the gear. As you can see, I'm proudly wearing this. I haven't taken it off in the last 3 days. And I think it's just going to be a lot of fun when we get out there. For me personally, there's no pressure to perform. As I said, for me, it's about setting the foundations and building the framework for Jamaica to have a really strong ski team in Olympics to come. So I'm just going to have fun out there.
Welcome back. Let me tell you what's been going on in the markets this morning. A Wall Street solid finish last night was followed by gains for stocks in the Asia-Pacific region. The Nikkei 225 in Tokyo finished ahead by more than 1.5%, while Sydney and Mumbai, which is not on the screen, also finished up by more than 1% apiece. You can ignore the Hong Kong and Shanghai numbers. The markets there remain closed for the Lunar New Year holidays. Well, in Europe, stocks have also traded to the upside since the opening a couple of hours ago or so. Here's the current picture. All of the main indices in positive territory. The MIB in Milan has got the yellow leader jersey on at the moment, ahead by 9/10.
All over the world to send money to their loved ones in Africa. With SendWave, you can send money to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the best part is, SendWave is absolutely commission-free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use SendWave? SendWave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store or Google Play Store. The app is free to download. After downloading it, just open the app and enter your name, email, and phone number. That's it. You're good to go. Make sure you use the promo code SR. S for Starr, R for Radio. This promo code will give you £5 free credit to send to Africa on your first transaction. Your money will be delivered to your recipient within seconds. Feel free to call me on 0749 7377 647 at any time. I'll be happy to tell you all about SendWave and help you in any way I can. Remember to use the promo code SR for £5 free credit. Medasse.
Are you looking for the fastest, reliable, and trustworthy door-to-door shipment company? Well, look no further. When was the last time your family received a shipment back in Ghana on time and in time? You are not sure? Well, Lamb Shippers, we pride ourselves with being the fastest, reliable, and trustworthy shippers you can use. You are assured of a prompt pickup anywhere in the UK by our personnel. They also make sure your items are well packaged to get to its destination in time. When it comes to door-to-door shipment, look no further. Well, Lamb Shippers, contact us on 07939009321 or 07498911820. Or you can visit our website www.welllamp.co.uk. You can also drop us a mail, info@welllamp@gmail.com. Well Lamp Shippers, fast, reliable, and trustworthy.
Hello, lovely listeners. Tune in to the renewed show with Charlotte. Make it a date to listen to me this and every Thursday at 5 p.m. on Starr Radio UK. Tune in to an hour of power, an hour of encouragement, an hour to inspire you to stay positive and strong in this season. See you there and listen.
Tune in to On Point here on Starr Radio UK with Empress Regina every Monday at 5 p.m. GMT. Looking forward to your company.
Hi everyone, it's your girl BB Clement, the author of How to Go From Employee to Entrepreneur and the host of your weekly business show, BB Means Business, the show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Starr Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
Body, it's your man. Bekutu, show them you got the cocoa set. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Harry Song, aka Mr. Songs. This is the Kingmaker Baba for the girls. We're here. This is Starr Radio. Don't go nowhere. UK, London. We they call them London for home. For here, we they call them London. And that's how you know. Just have fun and stay blessed.
The best radio show. Broadcasting worldwide, online 24/7.
All around the world. In your car.
At work.
At home.
On your smartphone.
This is Starr Radio UK.
Are you ready to turn it up?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Hey there, this is Archie, and this is Starr Radio UK on the morning show.
This is Starr Radio UK.
Okay, a massive good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good dawn to you wherever you might be on planet Earth, and those of you on other planets as well. I want to salute you all and welcome you to the Wednesday edition of the morning show. Today is the second day of the second month of the year 2022, so 02/02/2022. So those of you who like doing numbers and all that stuff and who can read into the numbers, something for you to work on. Tell me what that means. 02/02/2022. All right then. And welcome to the show. It's 10:34. And it's Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. But I'm saying special good morning to my colleagues, Mr. Frank Davis, Mr. Olayomi, Jody, Felix all the way in Aberdeen. Our able producer, Mr. Francis Guy. And to the Queen herself, Regina Enima. Queen, good morning to you. And to all the presenters on Starr Radio UK, we salute you and management. Hope every one of you are doing very, very well. To our worldwide listeners, wherever you are in the US, in Europe, in Asia, in Australia, on the African continent, especially those of you in Nigeria, those of you in Ghana, South Africa, and Uganda. I salute each and every one of you and I say welcome to the show. Hope you are all doing good. The second day of the second month. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. 10:35 the time. If it's the first time of tuning in on Wednesdays to listen to us, this is how the program goes. So on Wednesdays, I'm going to bring you the quote for the day. It will be followed by the weather forecast and the travel update as well. Then from there, we'll bring you we got a global trotting. Then at 11 o'clock exactly, we have Mr. Olayomi who is joining in to bring you updates from Nigeria. Well, Major General Muhammadu Buhari, retired, will not be able to complete the repairs of the comatose refineries and will be expecting the next government to continue with it. Well, yesterday he said that if I had been given the help that I need, I think I would have done better than I'm doing. So what do you think? A Nigerian soldier shoot dead correctional services officer in Kaduna. Well, we'll be bringing you more on that. When it comes to updates from Nigeria. Then after that, we'll be taking you to Ghana as well. And across the globe, starting from here in the UK. But remember, at 12 o'clock exactly, we'll take you to the Houses of Parliament for the Prime Minister's question time. But the lines will be open at 11:30 for you to add your voice to the discussions wherever you might be. It is a Wednesday edition of the morning show. My apologies. I'm looking forward to Friday. Yes. But before then, if you want to post your comments or anything, feel free. Post it on our Facebook page. I promise you, I'm going to read it. But if you go to our Facebook page now, the stories I'll be looking at or that is making the rounds or the headlines in Nigeria has all been posted there. Salute, Mr. Yummy. Okay, let's crack on. Now, when it comes to the quote for the day, it says, come to the realization that many of the things you look forward to may not happen. Come to the realization that many of the things you look forward to may not happen. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to give up hope. Keep on hoping, keep on believing that some way, somehow you'll get there. Because the moment people lose the faith that they're going to be able to live the next minute, that's when they take their lives. So, keep on keeping on. I remain yours sincerely, the one and only.
This is the morning show.
10:38. Let me take you straight to the weather front. Let me tell you what is happening on the weather front this morning. For England and the southern part, for London and the southern part of England, let me put it that way. Well, this afternoon we'll see rather variable cloud cover. While some patches of cloud will drift in at times, but sunny spells will persist for some, dry throughout and staying mild for the time of the year. Now this evening, cloud cover will build a little and clear spells will become less frequent. Overnight, it will be cloudy for most, but a few clearer breaks will once again develop around dawn. It's going to be mild. Top temperature, 13 degrees. The lowest is 7 degrees. Sunset, 16:51. Sunrise for tomorrow morning, 07:38. Pollution is low. UV level is low as well. Okay, let's cross on straight. Don't you worry, I'll let you enjoy the rest of the song, but it's now time for us to take you to the travel update after this quick commercial break.
Tune in to On Point here on Star Radio UK with Empress Regina every Monday at 5 p.m. GMT. Looking forward to your company.
Check it out.
This is Star Radio UK.
Okay, so keep your eyes on the roads, I will keep you navigated. I promise I'll be on the Star Radio UK Traveler update that comes to way every weekday from 10:40. So it's tittering towards 10:40. How is your travels like this morning? You want to share with us? It doesn't matter whether you are in the UK or you are in Afghanistan or in Timbuktu. Whatever it is, just share with us, and I promise you we'll be sharing with our worldwide listeners. It helps them a great deal. So, on the travel this morning, on the underground, the district line is partly suspended and there are minor delays. Let me bring you details of it. No service between Ealing Broadway and Chiswick Park is bound only, and minor delays on the rest of the line due to an ongoing fire brigade investigation. These are being accepted on the local buses and C2C and Southwestern Railway. But keep your eyes on the roads, and we'll keep you navigating. That aside, as you know, Northern Line is also partly closed until mid-May. So check before you embark on your journey so you don't miss your appointment. Now, DLR is still got reduced service. Reduced service is operating between Bank Tower, Gateway, and Canning Town due to power supply problems. Woolwich Arsenal services are operating to Matchshot and Stratford International. Good service on all other DLR routes. The other side, TFL Rail, London Tramlink and London Overground, good service there. Now, on the river bus, apart from the Woolwich Ferry that is still suspended, all the others have got good service. Now, keep your eyes on the roads, and we'll keep you navigated, I promise, our bond. Now, moving on to the National Rail, Gatwick Express has got special service, East Midlands Railway, special service, Great Northern, special service, Great Western Railway, special service, Great Anglia, special service, Scott Rail, special service, and Thames Link, special service there as well. But keep your eyes on the roads, I will keep you navigated. Moving on to our final segment, that's the major roads in London. Now, A316 has got closures, A4, closures, A40, closures, A41, closures, Central London Red routes, closures, and A20, serious delays there as well. A205 has also got serious delays. Now, if you can avoid them, do your best to avoid them. However, if you are stuck in there, continue to listen to us, because as and when there are any changes, we promise to bring it to the fore. But okay, for the A20, now traffic is slow moving on approach the junction. There's a slow traffic there. So please, if you can avoid it, as I've been saying, do your best to avoid that. But on that note, let me say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good dawn to you wherever you might be on planet Earth. Enjoy your commute for today. But you know what? Continue to keep those eyes on the road.
Welcome to Gabby Dave Global. We are a UK-based online e-commerce store, the first of its kind with license to trade in African products. Some of the products are clothing brands and all beauty accessories, hair and beauty brands, natural aphrodisiacs, processed and dried unprocessed food. Our mission at Gabby Dave is to connect African and Caribbean businesses to customers globally. At Gabby Dave, we ensure our sellers get the best deal for their products. We are not just here to help you reach a wider audience. We are also a distribution center to support business growth by fulfilling orders to your customers from our warehouse, making sure customers receive their products on time. We are inviting all Black-owned businesses to trade on our platform because we strongly believe Africans have a unique brand the customer would appreciate globally. So get in touch today and let us make your product and business go far.
Everybody, somebody, let me see your legs go up.
Enjoying the crazy laugh that I'm bringing away from Akase Brain Pong. That's a laugh that we have for you from Starr Radio UK. It's a crazy one. We always want to be with you. What about that? Okie dokie do. Let's go global trotting. UK front, what is happening here? Leveling up plan for UK unveiled by government. The government gives itself until 2030 to improve transport, business, housing, and education. You see, Bojo, he's got his plan. You know, he said he's going to sort things out. He's going to redeem his image. Do you think what he's doing is good enough? Well, it is on Starr Radio UK. The Prime Minister is facing further calls to resign amid parties' row. Tobias Elwood becomes the latest Tory MP to say he will submit a no-confidence letter in the Prime Minister. Well, we'll see what happens today on the Prime Minister's question time at 12 o'clock. I brought you this story earlier on, I think during the early part of the week. Was it Monday? Well, the Man U footballer Greenwood has been released on bail. The 20-year-old striker was arrested on suspicion of rape, sexual assault, and making threats to kill. And I did ask myself that question. I said, what goes on in our heads? My kind. When we become famous, or what exactly? You have all the money. You want somebody, you can't get somebody. So what is all that about? But well, innocent until proven guilty. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt, and I hope that he will have his time or his day in court to defend himself. But it's all coming away from Starr Radio UK. HRT products could be available over the counter. Now, women may be able to access a form of hormone replacement therapy in a pharmacy instead of at their GPs. Well, I think some good news for the women. Okay. In other parts of the world, US is trying to draw Russia into war, Putin says. And Russia's leader criticizes the US and NATO amid tensions over its military build-up near Ukraine. But who built up there? Who brought his military to the borders first? Isn't it Russians who were doing that? And now the NATO thought, no. They are actually planning something, and therefore they decided to put their heads together and decided to, also say that back off, or we are all coming after you as well. Okay, we'll be bringing you more on that front as well. Well, for that reason, the Ukrainians train for war as invasion fears grow. Many civilians are not convinced Russia will invade, but say all the war talk is unsettling. So they have wooden guns to be training with. Okay. Now, interestingly, Tonga has entered into COVID lockdown after aid delivered. Now, cases are detected among port workers as humanitarian aid arrives after a volcano and tsunami. Now, Whoopi Goldberg has been suspended over Holocaust remarks. Yesterday, we did discuss that as well. 10:49 the time. As I said, exactly at 11 o'clock, we'll be having Mr. Olayomi Koiki joining in to bring you updates from Nigeria. Okay. Tensions rise over the unlawful tracker blockade. The anti-vaccine mandate freedom convoy protest has spread to the US-Canada border. And you know, they wouldn't want anything of that sort to be troubling the trade and the movement of vehicular movement in that particular part of the world. But there's serious trading that goes on there as well. But we're bringing you more on that front as well. And the world record lightning bolt lit up 3 US states. Now, as we said, the bolt that stretched across Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas was extraordinary. Well, extraordinary things are happening, isn't it? It's all Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. In the Latin America area, brutal killing of Congolese migrant shocks Brazil. 3 people have been arrested over the killing on an upmarket beach that was captured on camera. They killed him. Well, we hope that they face the full rigors of the law as well. Now, Denmark has lifted almost all COVID restriction. It is the first EU country to drop nearly all restrictions despite relatively high case numbers. Hey, remember the Norway killer? Norway mass killer Breivik has been ordered to stay in jail. Anders Breivik killed 77 people in July 2011, and a court has ruled that he is still dangerous. And a man has been jailed after a Wild West rampage in Irish town. Now, Stephen Dowling fired shots from a high-powered hunting rifle. In Glenties in February 2020.
Jesus, Jesus, Jesus.
Okay, moving on to Asia as well. The Winter Olympic torch relay kicks off in Beijing. More than 1,000 torchbearers will carry the Olympic flame before Friday's opening ceremony. And as I said, when it comes to Crazy Loud, Starr Radio UK, we got it all to give to you. On the African continent, Zambian soldier promoted for helping deliver a baby. I think he has to be known as a soldier midwife. A military midwife, whichever would be appropriate. You are good and your mercy is forever. Oh, yeah. at the South African Parliament, some are saying it now as it's something that could be done. I mean, the new building that will be put up will be such that it will showcase the diversity in South Africa at the moment. A South Africa leader gets second report on Zuma era corruption. The details graft at public logistic company Transnet and the state arms firm Denel. Does it mean that it's going down big time? Well. And Liberia is betting old banknotes worth $4 million. It comes after a scandal about the apparent disappearance of more than $100 million of new banknotes. They decided to burn it all. How much did it cost them to print it though? Well, yesterday, let me say good morning once again to Coach D, who shared that information, that news with me. The Guinea-Bissau coup, attempted coup. The president of Guinea-Bissau has said he survived a coup attempt after being under heavy gunfire for 5 hours. Now, Umaro Sissoko Mbalo said attackers tried to kill him and his entire cabinet at the government palace. Now, he said many others have been killed in the fighting on both sides. Local media reported at least 6 deaths. Now, 4 attackers and 2 guards. The attackers were linked to drug trafficking in the country, he said, without providing further details. The gunfire erupted near government building on Tuesday in the capital of the West African nation, where the president was attending a cabinet meeting. A security source who did not want to be identified said that gunmen in civilian clothes had opened fire and a police officer had been killed. Some initial reports also said the cabinet had been captured. Well, the president is giving an excuse that it is drug traffickers who decided to now plan a coup or overthrow his government. Is there more to it than we see? I mean, we've looked at the French-speaking countries so far who have seen coup d'etat in the past few months. But do you think that is an extension of what is happening in other French countries that's happening there? But he seems to look at it in a different way. Well, it's all coming away from Starr Radio UK. And despite assurance given by the state government that it will deploy air and land troops to ward off insurgents from communities in the state, the terrorists have again raided 2 local governments and local government, killing 14 people, some of them said to be security personnel. And the House has moved to investigate NDDC cover or over uncompleted contracts there as well. We'll be looking more into those stories once we have Mr. Olayomi Koiki on in the next few minutes. But it's all coming away from Starr Radio UK.
Do me like the way you do. You know it, people.
Well, once again, we have ECOWAS condemning the attempted coup in Guinea-Bissau. Now, are the leaders, the various presidents in the countries that have not seen any coup d'etats quakering in their boots? Because it looks like they can see it happening around them. And there's a saying in a can or in the Ghanaian parlance in the tree that is a fool who says that it's whatever is happening is for my neighbors and not pertaining to me. And therefore, as we say, if you see your neighbor's beard on fire, you better get some water very close to you so you can dip your face into it or your head into it once yours is maybe catching fire as well. Or once it catches fire as well. If it does. Well, so what is happening to the African leaders? Let me put it this way, the West African leaders. But they've come out again to condemn. What do you think about all that? Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Why is slamming Buhari over repentant criminals with bandits killing 1,192? Well, he said the former president Obasanjo also said the other time that, well, you know what? You have to use the carrot and the stick method. So maybe that is what the method that Buhari seemed to be using. But don't you worry, Mr. Olayomi Koiki will throw more light on it. When it comes to Ghana, we will pass e-levy despite opposition. Ekufuado says, so how is it going to do that? Because you need the House of Parliament to pass it first. Or do they know something that we don't know? Maybe some people are chopping something to change their thoughts. Well, we'll be bringing you more on that front as well. But the opposition has said e-levy is not a panacea to revenue shortfalls. Go to IMF. Now, why is the government failing or stopping or not in a state of mind to go back to the IMF to go back? So that everybody knows that, well, they will come up with their stringent methods and rules that you have to stick to, or else maybe the government doesn't want to do that, and that's why they are thinking, well, we want to take the money from the citizens. The president says we will take it, whether it's passed or not. How are they going to do that? Well, this is all coming your way from Starr Radio UK. We'll take a quick break whilst we wait for Miss Olayomi Koiki to join in. So enjoy the rest of the song. It is Starr Radio UK, the Wednesday edition of the morning show.
This is Starr Radio UK.
Smartphone.
Let's go.
Starr Radio. Radio for the people.
Let me say good morning to Reverend Emmanuel Chidi. Man of God, thank you very much for your patronage. I really cherish that. May God richly bless you.
Let's go now.
But share the broadcast with your friends and loved ones wherever you are. It is Starr Radio UK. Well, it's the Wednesday edition of the morning show. And as I said earlier on, Mr. Olayomi Koiki is in the house and we're getting him all ready. A crazy love from the Akase Brimpong. You give me crazy love. And that's what Starr Radio UK brings your way. Okay, let's take a quick break. We come back and we'll bring Miss Olayomi Koiki to you. Stay tuned. Don't you go away. It is Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London.
Getting onto the property ladder has never been easy until now. Join us this and every Thursday from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. live on the Property Hour Show on Starr Radio UK, where we talk to mortgage brokers, property developers, estate agents, landlord, tenant, property consultants on how to invest or get into the property business and make money. You can't afford to miss this. The Property Hour Show is your best source into the property industry.
Hi everyone, it's your girl BB Clemens, the author of How to Go From Employee to Entrepreneur and the host of your weekly business show, BB Means Business, the show where we discuss everything you ever wanted to know about business but you were afraid to ask. How do I start my business? How do I raise the finance? How do I grow my business? Where am I going to find my customers? Join me every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. on Starr Radio UK to get all the information and tips that you need to become a successful entrepreneur and become financially free. Remember, don't let life dictate to you. Rather, put your signature on life.
Welcome back to the program. It is Starr Radio UK, and we've got with us Mr. Olayomi, who is in the house. And let me go to him and say, Yomi, massive good morning to you.
Yes, a very good morning, Mr. Archie, and welcome to all our listeners and viewers from around the globe. It is Starr Radio UK, your finest African and Caribbean radio station in London. It is the 2nd on 2nd, 2022, just like you said, 4 minutes past the hour. And it is where we bring you everything that you got to know regarding the news coming out of Nigeria.
Yes. How are you doing, sir?
Well, it's good to be back as usual. It's a very beautiful Wednesday. We're looking forward to the Wednesday edition of the Niger Voices, when we'll be coming later on this evening at about 1800 hours to all our listeners and viewers from around the globe. But I'm doing very well, as you can see. We can't give complaint at all, but I say good morning once again to all our listeners and viewers around the globe.
Yes, listeners, Mr. Olayomi for you, and as he's assured you this evening, the maiden edition for the year 2022, Niger Voices will also be coming your way exactly at 18 hours GMT. Okay. All right then. So now let's move on straight to the story that is making the rounds. First of all, marketers, Labour are warning the federal government for pushing refineries repair to Buhari's successor. Now, we know that refineries repair situation has been something that has been, hitting Nigeria so much that an oil producing country can get to a point where people have to be queuing for fuel, and it makes people think what exactly is going on. And mostly, I don't know whether should I say 70% or 75% of the fuel that is consumed in that country has to be imported. And so, what is all that about?
Well, you've got to remember that, the 4 refineries that we have in Nigeria are not working to capacity. So that literally means that more of the crude oil that is meant to be produced in Nigeria tend to be exported out of Nigeria. And that could sometimes be a big, impact to the forex that we have in the country. And that is why quite a lot of people are saying that, the situation doesn't seem to be helping the situation of the economy of the country. A lot of Nigerians do know that, this government is literally winding down. And as you can tell, the marketers are a bit concerned and they're a bit worried, regarding that. So, the headline says the marketers, the labor wants as federal government pushes refineries repair to Buhari's successor. So that literally means that, there will be no repair under this government anymore. So the next government that will be coming in would have to deal with that situation, as we can say. So that means, for now, we will have to leave those refineries that haven't been working to the next government that will be taking over from this government in the next 373 days with our countdown on Starr Radio UK.
So, can you give any update about the this private refinery that's taking place? What do you call him? This Nigerian rich, the Africa's richest man. What is his name? Dangote's. Dangote's. What are the updates of his refinery? What's going on when it comes to that?
Dangote refinery is still in the process. It's still going to take a couple of months before that would eventually be ready, for production. As at the week ago, the African largest refinery in Nigeria is Dangote to start operation in Q2 of 2022, according to what we know. We don't know if that would, operation to start sometime in the second half of 2022, which is where we are at the moment. Refinery to severely cut Nigerians' reliance on fuel import. The project has been repeatedly delayed since 2013, so it's still something that we have to wait. I mean, we're looking at about almost 650, BD, according to the Dangote refinery, is undergoing test run and should be fully ready for operations in the second half of this year, according to the company official. So we would have to wait and see how far that will go. But for now, the 4 refineries that Nigeria have is not working to full capacity.
Well, listeners, Mr. Olayomi Koiki, bringing you updates from Nigeria. Okay, now let's move on quickly to one other story before I leave you to go on to others. Now, despite assurance given by the state government that that it will deploy air and land troops to ward off the insurgents from communities in the state, the terrorists have again raided 2 local government areas, killing 14 people, some of them said to be security personnel. So insecurity, once again, looks like it was dying down, but no, it's still raising its ugly head. What is it all about, sir?
Well, the insecurity in Nigeria doesn't seem to be going anywhere, as you can tell. More Nigerians still have to suffer, the insurgency, the attack. And some community have also ended up paying what we can call a kind of, taxes to some of these, insurgency that have literally crippled almost every part of Nigeria, as you can tell. I was literally looking at the IDP camp, yesterday, and to my amaze, the number keeps growing, and the concern now is, will this IDP camp be spreading to other part of the the other state that we know, in terms of the situation where more Nigerians are being kidnapped, there's more killings happening, and all sorts, of crime, by the terrorists that have decided, to use Nigeria as their punching bag. Nigeria still remains the number 3 in the world when it comes to the insecurity. So there's quite a lot, that a lot of Nigerians are more concerned about. But like I said, we just have to wait and see if this situation will literally, change, but it doesn't seem so as we speak right now. So that means we just have to manage what we have, presently. But again, it is what it is. But more Nigerians are literally very, very concerned, with the situation in Nigeria, especially with the insecurity.
Okay, listeners, Mr. Olayomi Koiki. Now go on with the other stories making it around, sir.
Well, let's quickly touch on, because of the time constraint this morning, those that are watching us from some of our other field, you might not be able to see the image, but on the Starr Radio UK, the image is quite clear for you to look at, but you'll be able to pick up the sound because we're struggling to get the image captured into the broadcast this morning to the other channel that we are streaming to. Let's quickly touch on the other story that we do have this morning coming out of Nigeria. Quite a lot, let's go straight to Kaduna, where a Nigerian soldier shot dead a correlation service officer in Kaduna. It's not the first time that we've seen, this kind of, disengagement by the military using their might against, the other security operatives as well. A coronation service officer identified as O.O. Bauer has been shot dead by the Nigerian army personnel who mount a witness. According to the witness, said the deceased was shot dead following his refusal to stop for a search early at the army barracks. So, again, a very sad one coming out of Kaduna. It was coming with a friend from Abuja. The deceased was with one other civilian who was driving the car, which they were in a Toyota Venza. The duo were said to have refused to stop for search when they approached a barricade by the army on the Abuja-Kaduna Expressway. You got to also remember that is a very, very, a hot spot for, the terrorists and the Boko Haram. So that means maybe that was the right thing to do. But again, for security operatives in that area, decided that, the best option to do is to, take out these criminality, to shoot these individuals. Let's touch on House moves to investigate the NDDC over uncompleted contract. There's quite a lot of uncompleted projects in almost every part of Nigeria as we speak. According to the House of Representatives, has mandated its Committee on Niger Delta Development Commission, which is the NDDC, to investigate the non-completion of the contract awarded by the NDDC in 2012 to tackle the GU erosion. I mean, you can imagine the amount of project that has not been completed in 2020, in 2012, not to talk of the ones according to what we know this year and previous year. It was during the Jonathan government. We know that Jonathan government was one of the government that let loose almost every Nigerians, within their carcass to become so rich without completing so many projects as well. It also urged the Ecologic Fund Office and the Nigerian Erosion Watershed Management Project to urgently collaborate to seek a permanent solution to the erosion menace facing the University of Benin and the surrounding communities by the funding constructing alternative routes to the university. So that it says, moves to investigate NDC uncompleted project. It is the time of politics, so that means more people are coming out, more people are interested to become the next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. There is also still the tension of those that says, it is time that the Nigerian government review and demand for, the self-determination, the restructuring, the constitution. Everything is thrown into this, upcoming election, and that is what Niger Voices will be doing, throughout this year, looking at everything that we can discuss around this conversation. So let's look at the not an easy road for the enduring quest for a better Nigeria. A lot of people say that Nigeria will still work. Some say it is not going to work. But according to Vanessa Obio, that writes that at the leadership retreat in the rocky city of Abeokuta in Ogun State. Abeokuta, Ogun State is where we played that video of Obasanjo apologizing to Nigerians that he has been part of the failure of Nigerians, but they must have to buckle up. He used a word that I was able to look at the meaning of it. He says, you have to slug it out. He's not promoting violence according to that video, but he said if you don't slug it out, these other people that you are calling old haggard are not ready to leave power for you. And when I looked at the meaning of slug it out, it says to fight or compete over something until one side wins. So that means more Nigerians will have to fight if they want a better Nigeria, whether in Nigeria or whether in out of Nigeria, for those that are demanding a full independent out of the country called Nigeria, or those that say we need to restructure or we need to look into the constitution. Let us remember that this was a military decree 24 that has been used on so many people in the last 20 years of this 1999 constitution. So let's touch on more other headlines before I come back again to you in the studio because of time factor, as we're going to be going to the the PMQ later on this afternoon. Once again, pathway to macroeconomic stability. We do know that there's a lot of instability in the country as we speak. More Nigerians are probably struggling because we are not producing anything, and that means we have to import almost everything into the country. According to the Central Bank of Nigeria, recently the CBN governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, Central Bank of Nigeria to strengthen the industrial sector, which has been struggling to find its feet in the recent times. In matching words with the action, formally inaugurate the much anticipated funding initiative aimed at boosting the country's industrial capacity by stimulating output production. I was doing a program just before we started yesterday. This was last week, and I was reviewing how tomato ketchup is produced around the globe. And you can imagine Nigeria that has vast amount of land, but yet we've not been able to convert those tomatoes or make use of the land because of the X-Men terrorists, parading themselves in almost every part of Nigeria. And if you don't have, the stable electricity, I'm not sure we could be able to produce a kind of a ketchup that might also be a local ketchup for Nigerians. So that means more Nigerians, according to what I was also reading last week, based on the economy, an average Nigerian girl will not be able to afford a sanitary pad during their menstruation period as somebody that you expect that a country like Nigeria, 6th largest crude oil producer in the world, but more Nigerians have turned into buying the sachet of milk, sachet of everything, because they cannot afford to buy the tin milk as it used to be in the 80s. It is Star Radio UK. If you've just joined us, once again, I'll come back again slightly to you in the studio. Once again, apology for those that are watching us on the transmission feed on the other broadcast, because the email doesn't seem to be coming yet, but we're doing everything to see if we can bring it before we end up this program.
Okay, listeners, we apologize, as Olayomi said. Those of you on the other platforms who can see us, we are working on it, so you will see us pretty soon. Okay, but it is updates from Nigeria with Mr. Olayomi Koike. Now, I wanted us to look at the uncompleted contracts that the House is going to be investigating. Now, how rampant is that in Nigeria? Do we see lots of maybe structures or undertakings that have been left because one government left power and another one took power and decide we don't want to do it, we don't want to continue with it? And what reasons have they given for not continuing with that?
Well, it's just similar to the this present governor, River State Governor Wike, that was in Germany, I believe, last week. And for almost 12 years, a private jet belonging to the state was kept there. And this was a contract that was already fully paid, according to the information, by the previous governor, Rotimi Amechi. And you can wonder why a private jet is sitting in Germany when it should be back in the state to be used. And these are part of the corruption that that takes place on a daily basis in Nigeria. And most times, the civil servant tends to know more about these, but sometimes they tend to keep quiet around these as well. So it's quite a lot of problem in Nigeria when it comes to the amount of corruption that takes place. But again, we just have to make sure that we continue to report this crime, and we hope those necessary steps will be taken according to the House that have decided to look into this as well. Once again, I'll come back slightly to you again.
Okay, as it's the Wednesday edition of the morning show, we know we're going to be running up pretty soon. But what is happening on the social media platforms, and if there are any other news making the round, sir?
Well, let's go straight to the social media handle. Let's go straight to Ilana UK, who is representing the those that are demanding the self-determination out of Nigeria on a peaceful mission. According to their Twitter handle some 4 hours ago, no political deception. Going on other general elections in 2023 means renewal of the fraudulent Nigerians 1999 military decree enabled constitution for another 4 miserable years. Join the movement towards the actualization of an independent and self-sustaining hashtag Yoruba Nation. I've also looked up to some other news that is trending as well on the social media, and I'm going to take us to this one that was put out by one of the also the side of the Biafrans that believe also that a independent Biafra out of Nigeria. Let us remember that if according to the rotational government, according to what it is, Southeast is meant to be the one to lead or to be given the opportunity, just as it was done when the Nigerians, the Yoruba precisely, in 1999, after the whole things that took place, during the late MK Abiola election, that was how Obasanjo was brought out of the prison and become the president, and that those the tension of the Yorubas that also were angry that they didn't allow somebody that won that election was kept in the prison. Eventually, he died. So Obasanjo was used to suppress the pressure. This time around, now that the Biafrans are asking the exit out of Nigeria, will they allow an Igbo person to become the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria? According to one of their main Biafra agitator known as Simon Ekpa 1 hour ago, Biafrans are being killed every day by the terrorist Nigerian government. The world is mute because we are black Africans. Racism taken to a new height. Our natural resources are not black, but we are humans are black. Kill us, nobody talks. But when we attack our own natural resources, everybody talks. And he has also tagged the United Nations. So we're going to look at again quickly what are those other trending this morning. Peter Obi seems to be trending. Will Peter Obi, who is a Southeast, be used to quench or to suppress or to use to bargain the Biafrans from not exiting out of Nigeria? Just like I say, Obasanjo was what was used during the 1999 as we're coming into that new democracy to stop the Yorubas from demanding a peaceful exit then because of the injustice of the 1993 general election. So Peter Obi is trending, and let's quickly look on one or two tweets before we come back and wrap it up. According to Seun Onigbide, is leading a campaign to crowdfund 10 billion naira for Peter Obi presidential ambition. So it seems Nigerians are trying to put the shoes on to say we will do crowdfunding for Peter Obi. It was a one-time governor of Anambra State as we speak. So also, according to Neferati at First Ladyship 13 hours ago, that subtle declaration by Peter Obi, it seemed as gleaming of hope by many Nigerians. The battle is far from over. In fact, it is only just beginning, but it is a good thing to have a power of positive thinking right now. Also, there's another one here by Oladele says, who deserves to be Nigerian president? Retweet for Tinubu, like for Peter Obi. Let's see what it seems the likes are more than the retweet, according to what I see here. 32,000K for like and 1.5K for retweet. And the last one again, because like I said, Peter Obi seems to be number one on the trending on Nigeria Twitter this morning. For those that want to go out for Peter Obi, just like me, please come and identify yourself here. We need to start planning. Friends, we can do this. We can do this without cursing people. We can do it by just preaching the good news. But again, like I said, 373 days between now and the next general election. The tension is not over yet, as also Ilana Omodua will be holding a summit, the first UK town hall meeting, to tell those that believe that the Yoruba must exit out of Nigeria. So this is coming up. We'll be discussing that later on this evening during the program on Niger Voices. And it says Ilana UK town hall meeting, February 4th this month, where they'll be discussing the legal ways that will be taken to stop the first governorship election taking place in Ekiti and Osun State. And likewise, we'll be discussing this more further tomorrow. They are also planning to take the British government to the British High Court here to challenge the 1914 amalgamation. It is not yet over, as the race for 2023, the self-determination, the revolution now, the restructuring of the country. This year is a turbulence year for those that are following the politics of Nigeria. I'll come back again to you in the studio.
Yes, listeners, Mr. Olayomi Koiki for you, bringing you updates from Nigeria. I know you are thirsting for some more stories from there. Don't you worry. There's lots more going to be coming your way. But this evening, exactly at 18 hours GMT, Niger Voices will be coming your way, and there'll be a continuation of the discussion here. If you have any issues or anything, you can put it on our Facebook page or during that program, and Yomi will see to address that, or we get all the experts, whoever needs to speak to some of these issues, to speak to it. So Yomi, let me say thank you very much for this wonderful update once again.
Thank you very much, and I'll be back again later on for those that would like to listen more to everything about Nigeria, everything about the Yoruba, the Biafra, the restructuring, the revolution of Mayele Sowore, and everything about those that are already in the. We'll be giving all the details of those that have come out to say they will be the contesting at the moment for the first program of the year, and you'll be able to watch that live on Star Radio UK. Make sure you tune in at 1800 hours. That will be 1900 hours local time for those that will be watching us from Nigeria. Have a very good morning, and bye for now.
Bye bye, sir. Okay, listeners, that was Mr. Olayomi Koiki. We'll take a quick a short musical break, and then we continue with the show. Stay tuned, don't you go away.
Yeah, man. I hope been compelled to sing to this rhythm after seeing all what's going in Africa.
worldwide, online 24/7.
All around the world. In your car,
at work,
at home,
on your smartphone.
Enlighten your day with Starr Radio.
Under pressure, black people under pressure. Under pressure, Nigerians under pressure. Under pressure, Africans under pressure. No food, we belly, no money.
This is Starr Radio UK.
No bed.
This is Starr Radio UK.
The people, they must suffer.
All around the world.
In a city,
In your car,
At work,
at home,
on your smartphone.
you see them. Some are cry, some are die, some are weeping, some are wailing. Everywhere, down we go ahead. Under pressure, we will under pressure. Under pressure, everybody under pressure.
Okay, welcome back to the program Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Something from the late Rasky Mono. Under pressure. Which part of Africa is under pressure? Are you under pressure this morning listening to us? You got to listen to us because we ease the pressure wherever you are by bringing you all that you need to know pertaining to what is happening from across the globe, especially in your community. If you want to share with us what want you do so. All right then. Now, if you want to join in the conversation, you can call us on 0208-133-2257 or 58. It is 0208-133-2257 or 58. Those of you in the US and Canada and the Caribbean area, it is 001-718-303-2737. 001-718-303-2737. You can also text or WhatsApp at 075-396-61744, 075-396-61744, or you can tweet at us. Our Twitter handle is Starr Radio UK and email address is info@starradiouk.com. All right, whatever it is, make sure you keep your dial so locked on. As many of you who have sent us a lot of likes and those of you who have been sharing, I salute you all. Continue sharing the broadcast with your friends and loved ones. Now, quickly, we're going to be touching on a couple of stories. Quick. Before 12 o'clock, when I take you to the Houses of Parliament for the Prime Minister's question time. Well, leveling up plan for UK unveiled by the government. Now, you know that during all these umpires and everything that seems to be going on, we know people have been bashing government, and especially the red zones that fell to the blue. I mean, now we see them all, I mean, virtually saying that, well, somehow saying that they regretted voting for the Conservatives and seem to be having a bit of a regret. However, long promised plans to close the gap between the rich and poor parts of the country have been announced by the government. The strategy unveiled by Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove will take until 2030 and aims to improve services such as education, broadband, and transport. Mr. Gove said it will shift both money and power into the hands of working people. But Labour said the plans contain no new money and little fresh thinking. Mr. Gove was let me take it again. Mr. Gove, speaking this morning, said the strategy was not aimed at providing new funding, but ensuring it is spent effectively on local priorities. Now, Prime Minister Boris Johnson put levelling up at the heart of the Conservative election-winning manifesto in 2019. The launch of the strategy sees the government try to return to its key policy agenda after weeks of pressure on the Prime Minister over reports of parties held at Downing Street during lockdown restrictions. So do you think this will turn the tide for the Prime Minister and the Conservative Party? What do you think is all happening here in the UK? Well, you want to know more? Join us at 12 o'clock exactly when we take you to the House of Parliament for the Prime Minister's question time. Now, moving on to one other story quickly before we go to the Houses of Parliament. Now, households are to get £200 help to ease energy bill prices rises. Now, households could see cuts in energy bills of about £200, and the government plans to ease the impact soaring prices. Now, bosses at the two energy providers have confirmed the move as part of a plan that will also include an extension of support for those most in need. The Treasury is putting the finishing touches to £5 to £6 billion loan package for firms, enabling them to reduce bills. On Thursday, the energy regulator will unveil details of a sharp price rise. Now, off-gen price cap, which limits the amount firms charge for units of gas and electricity, will be raised from the 1st of April. Now, firms are struggling under the weight of surging wholesale prices, but passing on some of that rise to domestic users will deepen the costs of living crisis for households. The government's rebate and clawback loan scheme to ease energy costs, first revealed in the Times, would involve companies passing on the money to households to limit April rise. Well, some good news there. So let's wait and see the details of that tomorrow. We'll promise you, Starr Radio UK will be there to bring you all the details that you need to know. Now, moving on straight to some other stories making the rounds in other parts of the world. U.S. is trying to draw Russia into war. That is what Putin is saying now. Now, who amassed what weapons and armory at the Ukrainian airport borders? Russia and Ukrainian borders. And okay, let me put it the Ukrainian borders, because there are Belarus and the others who have also got Russian tankers at their borders with Ukraine from Russia. Okay, now Russia's President Vladimir Putin has accused the U.S. of trying to draw his country into war in Ukraine. Really? He said America's goal was to use a confrontation as a pretext to impose more sanctions on Russia. Mr. Putin also said the U.S. was ignoring Russia's concerns about the European expansion of NATO, the Western military alliance. The U.S. and its allies accused Russia of planning to invade Ukraine, something Russia has repeatedly denied. The U.S. On Tuesday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken tweeted that the U.S. was committed to preventing a conflict that is in no one's interest. Now, meanwhile, the Spanish newspaper El País has released what it says are confidential documents of the U.S. and NATO sent to Russia last week, including the Office of Talks on cutting back on nuclear weaponry and trust-building measures in exchange for reducing tension over Ukraine. A NATO official said this morning the alliance never comments on alleged leaks. Now, in recent weeks, Russia has moved about 100,000 troops equipped with everything from tanks and artillery to ammunition and air power to Ukraine's border. It comes 8 years after the country annexed Ukraine's southern Crimea Peninsula and backed a bloody rebellion in the eastern Donbas region. Now, Moscow in turn accuses the Ukrainian government of failing to implement an international deal to restore peace to the east, where at least 14,000 people have been killed and Russian-backed rebels control swaths of territories there as well. Now, meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned on Tuesday that a Russian invasion will not be a war between Ukraine and Russia. This will be a war in Europe, a full-scale one. But he was the same person who was a few days ago was saying that there can't be an attack. Russia is not planning to do anything of the sort. Now, is it because Bojo went there and had pat him in the back? UK gives them we dash out ammunitions, arms, and our stuff to them. So I don't know which ones we are. Maybe ones that we decide that we don't want to use that, then we just dash it to them and we say, we've dashed you 10, you can buy 20, whatever that. Interesting. Well, it's all coming away from Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. In a sad story, in Brazil, 3 men have been arrested of killing a Congolese migrant. Now, 3 people have been arrested in Brazilian city of Rio de Janeiro over the murder of a Congolese migrant, a killing that was captured on video and caused public outrage. Now, relatives said Moise Kabagambe was attacked at a beach kiosk after asking the manager to pay overdue wages. So you don't dare ask. Just keep on working. We won't pay you, and that's it. Relatives, footage released by the police show him being repeatedly beaten by 4 men with clubs and a baseball bat. The aggression continued even as Kagambe lay motionless on the ground. The video shows a group of people, including one of the aggressors, trying to revive his lifeless body after the beating. According to relatives, Kabagambe was demanding the equivalent of £28 for 2 days of work at the kiosk when an argument broke out. The police said 2 of those arrested had confessed to taking part in the beating, which happened on the 24th of January at about 22:25 hours in the well of Barra da Tijuca area. Kabagami had arrived in Brazil in 2011 with 3 siblings, fleeing armed conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. They broke my son's back and neck, Ivana Lay, his mother, told a newspaper. I fled the DR Congo so we wouldn't be killed, but they killed my son here the same way they do in my country, with punches and kicks like an animal. The Rio Mayor, Eduardo Paes, has called the killing unacceptable and revolting. So we'll see what happens on that front. We'll be following that story very, very closely. See the judgment that will be meted out to these ones. And as I say all the time, no matter what is done to them, it wouldn't bring this poor soul that has been killed, destroyed, back. Okay, now I'll find a story before we move on to some other stories happening in Africa as well. Coup d'etats, coup after coup all the time. Well, Tonga enters COVID lockdown after aid delivered. Now cases are detected among port workers. You know, they never experienced any COVID because they didn't allow people they stopped people from traveling or something of the sort. So there was no lockdown. People were just going about their duties in that particular place. But Tonga will go into lockdown after several cases of COVID were recorded in the capital city, Nuku'alofa. Prime Minister Siozi Sovalini said on Tuesday 2 port workers had tested positive. Officials later confirmed 3 more cases in family members. The South Pacific nation had previously managed to stay virus-free. The outbreak comes as Tongans tried to recover from a deadly volcanic eruption and tsunami which left 3 dead and damaged homes and infrastructure. Tonga had avoided COVID outbreaks by closing its border to the outside world in early 2020. But since the eruption, it has since been heavily dependent on foreign aid for supplies of fresh drinking water, shelter, kits, and rescue equipment. So far, foreign and aid deliveries there have been handled using contactless protocols to stop the virus spreading from abroad. They include leaving humanitarian supplies in isolation for 3 days before they are handled by Tongans. Now, Australia, New Zealand, and United States, China, France, Fiji, and the UK have all sent ships carrying supplies to them. Last week, however, a COVID outbreak hit the HMAS Adelaide, a crucial Australian relief ship bound for the island nation with dozens of crew members infected. The Australian Defence Force Operation Chief said on Wednesday workers who tested positive had been working in a different area of the port to where the warship was, and said there was no evidence the cases were linked. Well, we hope that they some way somehow sort it out. I mean, well, now that they know, with isolation, putting whatever things, aid that has been given to them, isolating them for 3 days before the Tongans come for it, it's a good move. What about that? Well, it is Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Once again, late last night, I had Kojo sending me no, it was in the evening, he was sending me some news about another coup d'etat, attempted coup d'etat, let me put it this way, in Guinea-Bissau. Now, the president of Guinea-Bissau has said he survived a coup attempt after being under heavy gunfire for 5 hours. Now, Umaru Sissoko Embalo said the attackers tried to kill him and his entire cabinet at the government palace. He said many others have been killed in the fighting on both sides. Local media reports at least 6 dead. Now, 4 attackers and 2 guards. The attackers were linked to drug trafficking in the country. Now, that's the question that I've been asking. How did you know the attackers are drug traffickers? Now, if they are drug traffickers, they'll go to the borders, shoot people there, and move their wares into the country. So you cannot say that that is it. It is what is happening when it comes to especially the French-speaking countries in that sub-Saharan African, West Africa, let me put it that way. Now, a security source who did not want to be identified said that gunmen in civilian clothes had opened fire and the police officer had been killed. Some initial reports also said that the cabinet had been captured. Mr. Mbalo, however, said the attackers failed to break into the cabinet meeting. What I can guarantee is that the situation is under control, he said. Now, Guinea-Bissau, with a population of just under 2 million people, is one of the poorest countries in the world. The former Portuguese colony has seen 9 coups or attempted coups since 1980. Now, struggling with a massive foreign debt and an economy that relies heavily on foreign aid, the country has also become a transit point for Latin American drugs, leading it to be dubbed by some of Africa's first narco states. Now, Mr. Mbalo said the attackers were an isolated group and that they were linked to drugs in the country. Well, I really hope that that is it. Now, when I was elected president of the republic, I promised to fight 2 things: corruption and drug trafficking. Now, and this is also linked to that, and I knew what the price was, but the fight continues, he said. Now, West African regional leaders described the incident as a coup attempt and urged troops to return to barracks. You see what is happening there? Now, he is alluding that these are drug traffickers who came in to do that. Now, the West African regional group, the ECOWAS, is saying the troops should return to barracks. So, was it a coup d'etat? Well, Mr. Mbalo, a former army chief, won the December 2019 presidential election, but he faced a last-minute standoff with Parliament before taking office the following February. Okay? Could appear to be making a comeback in the West African sub-region. Now, what do you think is going to be happening there? Well, it is all Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Okay, let's move on. Since we have only about 14 minutes to bring the first part of the program to a close. Okay, so let's land in Ghana straight on. We capture a couple of stories and then I can bring the program to a close. We will pass e-levy despite opposition. Who is speaking? The president of Ghana, President Akufo-Addo. Now, the President Akufo-Addo has reiterated his government resolve to pass the controversial electronic transaction levy. According to him, the government, in its bid to lessen the burden on Ghanaians during the heat of the COVID-19, did some expenditure. Really? And that has become necessary for some measures to be put in place to fill those gaps created. Now, if you are listening to me and your family benefited from anything there, relieves from the COVID grant that was given to the country. Was it a loan or was it a grant? That 1 billion that was given to the country or anything of the sort. I want you to raise your hand. Say something about it. Let us hear from you. I would love to know. Because, I mean, if people enjoy, benefited from that, then why not? Okay. But He said, according to him, the government, in its bid to lessen the burden on Ghanaians during the heat of the COVID-19, did some expenditure, and that has become necessary for some measures to be put in place to fill those gaps created. Now, revenues during the 2020-2021 went down considerably because of the slowing down of the economic activities that came from the COVID-19. At the same time, government, in order to keep the country going, did incur some expenditure on the free water, the free electricity. Okay, so he said you have to pay for the free water and free electricity. Okay, now these were the unavoidable expenses that government had to make. Now, President Kufuor disclosed when addressing traditional leaders from Zoze in the Volta region on Tuesday. Now, he went on further to say, he continued, these are the efforts that we are now making, which are being resisted by the opposition, but we will try and close the gap. That is the reason it has become necessary for us to use this measure or these measures like this famous tax, which has caused so much unnecessary disputation. Nevertheless, we will continue. The President Kufuor added that despite the opposition, I am determined to persevere to make sure that we find the means to address some of the issues. The minority in Parliament have rejected a reduction of the electronic transaction levy to 1.5% from the 1.75%. The latest reduction was tabled during consultation with the minority on Friday after Thursday's meeting ended inconclusively. The minority, led by its leader Haruna Idrisu, according to some news networks, rejected the proposal, arguing the reduction is negligible. But in another story relating to the e-levy, Mark Asibeyabor, a former New Jobbing South MP, has disputed government's claim that the introduction of electronic transaction, that the e-levy, is the solution to generating more revenue to resuscitate the economy post-COVID-19. According to the New Patriotic Party politician, government should halt the e-levy. This is not from somebody from the opposition. This somebody from the ruling party. Okay, somebody from the ruling party, and he is saying that now he stressed that so many exemptions could make it difficult for government to achieve its 6.9 billion target. If I was the finance minister, I would be convincing the president that it is about time we went back to IMF. In my estimation, the maximum amount we can get from the e-levy is about 5 billion Ghana cedis, which is less than $1 billion. So, I don't think that the e-levy is going to be a panacea to our revenue. Going to the IMF will ensure some stability, and above all, we are going to get some 3 billion, he said. Now, the nation has been divided on the proposed e-levy since the finance minister, Kenneth Oriata, announced it in November 2021. The tax policy seeks to add 1.75% charge on every electronic transaction. The government is, however, struggling to pass the controversial bill due to strong opposition from the National Democratic Congress. The minority argued that imposition of the tax will heighten the sufferings of the ordinary Ghanaian. However, government maintains the e-levy is the homegrown technique to restore the economy badly hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. But my question is, the $1 billion that was given the country during the pandemic or for the COVID, okay, what was it used for? Can government account for it? I'm not saying that we the way it was maybe distributed or dissipated to various maybe ministries. Okay, let me put it that way. So the ministries who were directly in line of, making people's life comfortable, whatever they might have used it for. I'm not saying that they should now, we have to wait for the Accountant General or the Auditor General to now go on and look at it and say, well, this ministry did that. But I want totality, that this is the money that came, this is what was given from the government front, to tell people exactly what those monies have been used for. But they are saying that when they use it to eat stuff, what stuff? Is it inflating vaccine prices? So that one was the one that came into the limelight that people saw. Now, what about those that have not been seen? Are you catching my drift? So, it's quite an interesting one. But the president is of the view that he is going to soldier on. Can he? Will he? How? Let us know. Is it that maybe some people's palms are going to be greased nicely, and therefore, well, they will not be seeing anything, but they will be enjoying it? What do you think about that? It is Starr Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Bringing the time now to 3 minutes to the top of the hour, and we are going to bring the program to a close in just a minute. Now, still on the e-levy, I think today I'm going to end my stories on the e-levy, the final one. Now, with the gridlock between the majority and minority sides of parliament over the controversial e-levy still pending, the government and the minority is said to have a technical victory of victory in terms of numbers to approve the bill. Now, according to a leading member of the opposition NDC, the government, through judicial intervention, is securing an injunction against a member of the minority side to prevent him from participating in parliamentary activities. In a Twitter post cited, Felix Kwachofosu has accused the president, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, of instigating the injunction against the embattled member of parliament for Asin North, James Jeche Kwesi. So, in a desperate last throw of the dice, the MPP lawyer Frank Davis, it's not Frank Davids, this is Frank Davis. So you don't say that Frank went to do that. The obvious instigation of Akufo-Addo is seeking judicial intervention in the passage of the e-levy by bringing an injunction against the Asin North MP to prevent him from participating in voting in Parliament, Kwachofosu tweeted. A Cape Coast High Court in July 2021 ruled that Mr. Kwesi held dual nationality when he filed his papers to contest the seat in contravention of the Constitution. Now, this was after a private citizen filed a suit challenging the eligibility of Mr. Kwesi in contesting the 2020 parliamentary election, which he won. After filing an appeal against the ruling of the court and a stay of execution against holding himself as MP for Asin North, the embattled member of the opposition party has been participating in the parliamentary activities, insisting that he has the right to hold himself as an MP. So, Mr. Kwesi maintained that the court directive is there, but also the race process that you take after such pronouncement and rulings and have satisfied all the requirements. I am not going to get into details on that, but based on processes that I have initiated, it gives me the opportunity to stay as MP for Asin North. And for that matter, any committee I belong to in Parliament, which is also an extension of Parliament, equally binds my membership, which is why I was in the meeting, he added. The seeming equal number of representation in terms of numbers for the majority and minority in Parliament has heavily delayed the government effort to pass the 1.75 levy on all electronic transactions. The minority, who have heavily opposed e-levy bill, have on various occasions engaged the majority sides in heated confrontation over the bill, which in some instances generated into full-blown brawls in the Chamber of Parliament. Now, so we see government trying to use some chukuku way to twist the hands of the opposition so that they can have a majority when that bill is is laid in Parliament so that it can be passed. Is that why the president was saying that, well, whatever I say, they're going to be soldiering on? So is that the end of the fight from the minority or the opposition? Let me put it that way, because they are all the same, so I wouldn't call them the minority. Opposition in Parliament? What do you think? I would love to know what you think about all this. But this is all coming your way from Starr Radio UK, and this is where we bring the first part of the program to a close. But remember, I'll be taking you to the House of Parliament for Prime Minister's Question Time. And also, exactly at 18 hours GMT and 19 hours for those of you in Nigeria, the first edition or the maiden edition of the Niger Voices year 2022 will be taking place. We'll be having Ms. Olayomi bringing you that program. So on that note, let me say thank you very much. We'll take a commercial break. We come back and then I will bring you the PMQ. It's been a pleasure coming your way. I remain yours sincerely, Archie.
Welcome to Gabby Dave Global. We are a UK-based online e-commerce store, the first of its kind with license to trade in African products. Some of the products are clothing brands and all beauty accessories, hair and beauty brands, natural aphrodisiacs, processed and dried unprocessed food. Our mission at Gabby Dave is to connect African and Caribbean businesses to customers globally. At Gabby Dave, we ensure our sellers get the best deal for their products. We are not just here to help you reach a wider audience. We are also a distribution center to support business growth by fulfilling orders to your customers from our warehouse, making sure customers receive their products on time. We are inviting all Black-owned businesses to trade on our platform because we strongly believe Africans have a unique brand the customer would appreciate globally. So get in touch today and let us make your product and business go far. Here are some of the benefits of using Gabby Dave Global. User-friendly platform, track your shipment, online support, transparent process, multiple SKUs, multiple products, a platform that encourages manufacturers as well as traders. Our marketing and PR interventions amplifies yours. Organized products and categories for easy access and navigation. Access to global community, especially within UK and Europe.
In Africa. With SendWave, you can send money to Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the best part is, SendWave is absolutely commission-free. Our exchange rates are excellent. You can see for yourself by checking them out on our website. So how do you use SendWave? SendWave is an app that you can download onto your phone from the App Store.
As Tobias Outward, he isn't popping up on Sky the whole time. You don't know his name, most people. He's called Peter Aldous, the Waveney MP in Suffolk. Now, he isn't one of those individuals that hogs the limelight or particularly grandstands when they do something like that. Yet he just said he couldn't put up with it anymore. And the combination of what happened in Downing Street and the way that Downing Street dealt with this tipped him over the line. And I suspect it will be Peter Aldous that Downing Street are more worried about, because is there a silent majority of Peter Aldouses on those Conservative backbenches worried that the damage done to the Prime Minister's reputation, the struggles that Boris Johnson's having to reset his government is too much? Or, as Stuart Anderson was saying to you a moment ago, actually this government with an 80 Street majority, with Boris Johnson being pretty much the only Tory politician that most Tory MPs think can knit that electoral coalition together, can survive. That's why the levelling up stuff that you're talking about is so interesting. And I thought it was quite noteworthy that Stuart Anderson was sort of trying to ride two horses. On the one hand, saying he was really excited about the white paper, which we'll hear about in an hour or two, and also that it was all happening already. Well, if it's all happening already, why do you need the white paper? And I think that that's why actually what's happening is we're going to have to wait and see for the detail of this white paper, which we've been talking about in anticipation for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's a bit odd, to be honest, Kimberly, that the Prime Minister isn't personally fronting what should be quite a big moment. Michael Gove will give a statement in the Commons, as I say, in about 90 minutes or so, and that will be this phase of work unveiled. Yet Boris Johnson not leading on that. And I think that there are just so many questions at the moment. As soon as tomorrow we might get a big announcement about energy prices, there is suggestions in this morning's papers that the government could effectively give
taxpayer-backed loans to energy companies to try and spread the increase of costs over several years to take effectively a couple £100 off what otherwise would be a £700 increase in energy bills, taking them to somewhere in the region of £2,000 a year. That's the biggest issue facing many voters today. The cost of living crisis is upon us now. The Levelling Up White Paper has a much longer time frame. Delivery only promised after the next one, maybe two general elections. The date in the White Paper, we understand, for delivering is 2030. So you've got a mixture of short-term crises that clearly the Prime Minister is urgently wrapped in discussing with Chancellor Rishi Sunak. And then you've got these longer-term things that, even though they've been built up for months, are also coming out today.
So I'm just going to stop you there. We've just gone 12:02. Let's have a listen into the Speaker. We're waiting for PMQs.
Members may not accuse each other of lying or deliberately misleading the House unless such a substantive motion is under consideration. Erskine May is clear that it is to preserve the character of parliamentary debate, which I take to mean to stop it descending into fruitless cycles of accusation and counter-accusation. May I also say that expressions when used in respect of the members, which are regarded with particular seriousness, generally leading to prompt intervention from the Chair and often a requirement on a member to withdraw the words, include charges uttering deliberate falsehoods. It is important to stress context. Similar words said in different proceedings might attract a different response from the Chair, depending on the subject being debated, tone and other considerations, but in general the Chair will not tolerate accusations of lying or deliberately misleading the House. That is the long-standing practice of the House, as set out in Erskine May and followed by successive speakers and deputy speakers. Of course, long-standing practices may change. For example, if the House decided it wanted a different approach, perhaps informed by the Procedure Committee inquiry, but it's not for me to change the practice unilaterally. Therefore, I ask members to respect this approach. I know feelings run high on important issues we discuss, but there are plenty of ways of making strong feelings felt within the rules and without placing the Chair in the invidious position of having to order members to withdraw on seeking their suspension. Before we come to Prime Minister's questions, I'd like to point out that the British Sign Language interpretation of proceedings is available to watch on Parliament Live TV. I now call Esther McBay.
Question number 1, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this Sunday, Her Majesty the Queen will become the first British monarch to celebrate a Platinum Jubilee. While it is a moment for national celebration, it will be a day of mixed emotions for Her Majesty, as, of course, the day also marks 70 years since the death of her beloved father, George VI. I know that the whole House will want to join me in thanking Her Majesty for her tireless service. We look forward to celebrating her historic reign with a series of national events in June. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Esther McBay.
On Monday, the Secretary of State for Health said mandatory vaccinations would be subject to a consultation. So can the Prime Minister make it clear, unequivocally, no ifs, no buts, no qualifications, that mandatory vaccinations for NHS staff will be abandoned? Will he also make it clear that is true for care workers as well, many of whom have already lost their jobs? So what support will the government be giving to get those care workers back into the care sector, and will those who've lost their jobs get compensation?
Minister.
I thank my right honourable friend very much for her thoughtful work on this. I want to stress that vaccines remain our best line of defence, and I do think that NHS staff and all those who work in the care sector have a professional responsibility to get vaccinated, Mr. Speaker, but as my right honourable friend, the Health Secretary, told the House on Monday, given the difference between Omicron and Delta, it is right, and she is right, that we revisit the balance of risks and opportunities, Mr. Speaker. The Health Secretary has said we'll launch a consultation, and subject to the responses and the will of this House, Mr. Speaker, the government will revoke the regulations.
We now come to the Leader of the Opposition, the Right Honourable Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And following your opening remarks, I just want to say to the members opposite, theirs is the party of Winston Churchill. Our parties stood together as we defeated fascism in Europe. Now their leader stands in the House of Commons parroting the conspiracy theories of violent fascists to try and score cheap political points. He knows exactly what he is doing. It's time to restore some dignity. Mr. Speaker, one of the most absurd claims made on behalf of Operation Save Big Dog is the Prime Minister and the Chancellor writing in the Sunday Times that they are the tax-cutting Conservatives. Why do these alleged tax cutters keep raising taxes on working people?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on his first point, I don't want to make heavy weather of this, but I am informed that in 2013, the right honourable gentleman apologised and took full responsibility for what had happened on his watch, and I think, Mr. Speaker, that was the right thing to do. And Mr. Speaker, on what we're doing to tackle cost of living and taxation, Mr. Speaker, our COVID recovery plan is absolutely vital in helping people with the cost of living, lifting up universal credit payments, Mr. Speaker, by cutting the tax that people effectively pay, lifting the living wage, Mr. Speaker, helping councils with another £500 million for those who are facing particular hardship, Mr. Speaker. But what we're also doing, and this is absolutely vital, is increasing the number of high-wage, high-skill jobs in this country. 420,000 more on the payroll than there were before the pandemic began, because we've had the fastest exit from COVID of any European economy, Mr. Speaker, because we had the fastest vaccine and booster rollout.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, it's not just the national insurance rise. Thresholds for income tax frozen, a stealth tax on working people. The threshold for tuition fees frozen, a stealth tax on working people. Local authorities forced to increase council tax, a stealth tax on working people. You can be as stealthy as you like, but you can't hide reality. We have the highest tax burden for 70 years during the middle of an inflation crisis. So I ask the Prime Minister again, why do he and the Chancellor keep raising taxes on working people?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what we are doing is helping people with the cost of living, cutting taxes for those on universal credit, Mr. Speaker, as I have said, helping people with the cost of their fuel, Mr. Speaker, with the cold weather payments, the warm homes payments, Mr. Speaker, doing all the things that this country would expect, lifting the living wage, which this party, Mr. Speaker, introduced. This government has increased by the record amount, Mr. Speaker, and above all, the most important thing that we are doing is helping people into work. 500,000 people off welfare into work under our Way to Work scheme. More people in work now than before the pandemic began, and that is the record of this government. Labour, never forget, Mr. Speaker, there's never been a Labour government that left office with unemployment lower than when they entered.
Lots of words, lots of bluster, no answers. Word of warning. Word of warning, Prime Minister. That's not going to work with the police. I'll tell him why they're putting taxes up. Low growth. In the decade of Tory government before the pandemic, growth slumped. It was much, much weaker than under the last Labour government. Tories matched our record on growth, we would have £30 billion more to spend on public services without having to raise a single tax. Mr. Speaker, surely even this Prime Minister doesn't need someone else to tell him that he and the Chancellor are having to raise taxes because the Tories failed to grow the economy over a decade.
Prime Minister! No, Mr. Speaker, I think everybody in this country can see that we've been through the biggest pandemic since for 100 years, that we've looked after the people of this country to the tune of £400 billion, that we've put into furlough and all the other schemes, 11.7 million people protected. Everybody knows the cost of that, Mr. Speaker. And at the same time, in spite of all the difficulties that we have faced, we have now got the fastest growth in the G7. Absolutely true. We've got youth unemployment. We've got youth unemployment at a record low, Mr. Speaker. We've got 3 times as much tech investment coming into this country as there is in France, twice as much as there is in Germany. Yes, that's absolutely true, Mr. Speaker. And never forget, if you want to know about Labour economics, never forget the last time they were in office, Mr. Speaker, when they were finally booted out, they left a note saying there's no money left. That's the way they run the country, Mr. Speaker.
Here's Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, the UK...
Some people won't be getting more because they won't be here to hear it, so here's Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, the UK has suffered the worst economic crisis in the G7. The Prime Minister has more chance of persuading the public that he didn't hold any parties than he has of persuading them that the economy is booming. High taxes are not just the result of low growth. Under this government, we've seen a pandemic of waste and fraud. From the Prime Minister's yacht to government contracts for mates of ministers, they've treated taxpayers as an ATM machine for their mates and their lifestyles. Now we find, Mr. Speaker, they've written off £8.7 billion on PPA, and the Chancellor's writing off £4.3 billion in fraud. That's enough to cover the tax hike he's inflicting on working people. So why did this government block the National Crime Agency from investigating all the billions they lost to fraud?
Mr. Speaker, of course we despise fraud and those who steal from the taxpayer, and that's why we've already recovered £743 million in lost furlough money, Mr. Speaker, £2.2 billion that was stolen in bounce-back loans, and we will go on. But I have to tell you, Mr. Speaker, that I am proud of what this government and this country did in securing record quantities of PPE and record time, Mr. Speaker, in furloughing and looking after the entirety of British business and society in the way that we did, Mr. Speaker. And once again, Captain Hindsight comes to this House and attacks the government for doing exactly what he urged us to do 18 months ago. Mr. Speaker, it so happens that I found a letter. I've been rustling in my notes, Mr. Speaker, and I found a letter which I will place for your convenience in the House, in the library of the House, Mr. Speaker, from the Shadow Chancellor to my Right Honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Deluxe, suggesting that we could secure PPE supplies. This is on April the 22nd, 2020. Secure PPE supplies from from a theatrical costumier, and that we could get ventilators from a professional football agent, Mr. Speaker. No wonder under Labour, fraud was running at £21 billion per year, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud of what this government did to secure PPE, and I'm proud of the way we protected this country.
Here's Starmer. Who wants to be the first to leave? Please put your hand up because I'm going to pick one of you. Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister might want to sharpen how he answers questions under interview. He's going to need it in the next few weeks. Waste and low growth explain why we have high taxes, but they don't explain why it's always working people that are asked to pay more. Yesterday, he ordered his troops not to support a windfall tax on oil and gas companies. As a result, the country is missing out on over £1 billion we could have used to cut taxes on energy bills for working people. Today, he's ordering his troops to vote for tax cuts for banks. As a result, the country is missing out on another £1 billion we could have spent cutting taxes for working people. Why are the Chancellor and the Prime Minister protecting oil companies and bank profits while putting taxes up on working people?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, let's just get to the heart of what this is all about. This is all about dealing with the consequences of the biggest pandemic this country has seen, with an unprecedented economic crisis in which the state had to come forward and look after the people of this country to the tune of £408 billion. But everybody can see the fiscal impacts of that. Shall I tell you what this government and this country is voting for and what we're doing? We're investing now in 45,000 more NHS workers, more people in our NHS this year than there were last year. 10,000 more nurses, 10,900 more nurses, about 5,000 more doctors, 9 million more scans, 100 community diagnostics hubs to help people to get the scans and treatment they need. And the incredible thing, the lamentable thing is that the party opposite, the party of Nye Bevan, Mr. Speaker, voted against those funds, voted against that investment, and they would have made our COVID recovery impossible.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, for all the bluster, the truth is the Conservative Party are the party of high taxes because they're the party of low growth. They are the party of high taxes because they're the party of eye-watering waste. Mr. Speaker, we know this Prime Minister has no respect for decency or honesty. I can take it when it's aimed at me, but I won't accept it when he gaslights the British public, writing absurd articles about cutting taxes at a time when he's squeezing working people to the pips. Isn't it the case, Mr. Speaker, that he and his Chancellor are the Tory Thelma and Louise, hand in hand, as they drive the country off the cliff and into the abyss of low growth and high tax?
Mr. Gullis, I think you've been trilled for long enough and you don't want to be trilled anymore. And that is the last comment I have, or otherwise I will ring your mother. Keir Starmer.
Isn't it true, Mr. Speaker, that he and the Chancellor are the Tory Thelma and Louise, hand in hand as they drive the country off the cliff and into the abyss of low growth and high tax?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think the right honourable gentleman is Dick Dastardly and Muttley. Both of them pulling in different directions. We know they have different views, Mr. Speaker. We are getting on with the job, Mr. Speaker. And just in the last few days, and of course, I think it's absolutely extraordinary that they've done nothing to support our COVID recovery plan. They've voted against our plans to support the NHS. But what we're doing, just in the last few days, while he's been fixated on the issues that he's absolutely determined to escalate, what we've done, we've opened free ports across the country just in the last few days. We're getting 500,000 people off welfare into work with our Way to Work plan. In just a few short minutes, Mr. Speaker, I hope he will hang around, because he will hear my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Levelling Up, deliver the long-awaited Levelling Up white paper, full of good stuff, including 55 education investment areas across our country. A wonderful moral and economic mission to level up and give opportunity across the whole country. A fantastic vision for this country, Mr. Speaker. They have nothing of the kind to offer the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, while we are getting on with coming out of COVID with the fastest economic recovery in the G7, the fastest. He would have kept us in lockdown, Mr. Speaker. We're fixing the NHS. We're fixing the NHS and social care when they voted against it, and they have no plan. And we are, well, Mr. Speaker, we are building a coalition. We are building a coalition.
Just a minute. Prime Minister, I'm this way, not that way. Maybe Specsavers might be the answer to see where I am. And can I just say, Dame Caroline Dinage is desperate to get the next question to you. Dame Diana Caroline Dinage.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to, first of all, give my condolences to the Right Honourable Member for Camberwell and Peckham and say how good it is to see her back in her place. Mr. Speaker, Sophie Farrell was just 10 years old when she died in September. Childhood cancer is often described as rare, yet cancer is the biggest killer of children under 14. Sophie's GP failed to diagnose her cancer, and it was only when she went to an A&E that they discovered the tumour in her little body that was 12 centimetres long. So, Mr. Speaker, on World Cancer Day on Friday, I would like to ask the Prime Minister to please advocate for more and better training for general practice to identify cancer in children.
Prime Minister.
I thank my honourable. I'm very sorry to hear of Sophie's case, and my thoughts are with her family and her friends. And she's right that research is crucial in tackling childhood cancers. That's why we're investing in more research. But it's also vital that we do tests and diagnostic scans and screens early enough. And that's why it's also important that NICE has not only updated its guidance on referring childhood cancers in February February last year, but we're investing in 100 new diagnostic centres in community hubs.
I now come to the Leader of the SNP, Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sure that you and the rest of the House will want to join me in celebrating and supporting World Cancer Day. Mr. Speaker, just in relation to your earlier statement, I have a difficulty reconciling the Prime Minister's version of events with other evidence, and as you know, I have a duty to reflect and represent the deep, deep public anger with the Prime Minister. That said, Mr. Speaker, I respect the absolute impartiality that you take in your role, and I want to set on the record that I respect both you and the authority of the Chair. Mr. Speaker, this morning the Telegraph newspaper revealed that the Prime Minister attended a party in his flat on the 13th of November 2020. The Prime Minister previously told the House that no party took place. The police are now investigating this party, and we face a very real prospect of a sitting Prime Minister being questioned under caution and being fined in office. And if he is questioned, Mr. Speaker, he must go. If he's fined, he must resign. Mr. Speaker, you'll agree that the House should not be treated with contempt. So can the Prime Minister... here we go again. So can the Prime Minister update the House on his whereabouts on the evening of the 13th of November? Surely, Mr. Speaker, he doesn't need to wait for an investigation to tell us exactly where he was.
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, here we go again, says the right honourable gentleman opposite, and I must say those are entirely my feelings. He asked exactly the same questions as I recall in the chamber a few days ago. He knows, Mr. Speaker, that the process must go on, but I can tell him what's been going on in Downing Street, Mr. Speaker. In November and throughout, we've been delivering the fastest vaccine and booster rollout anywhere in Europe. We've been getting people back into work, Mr. Speaker. We've been getting people back into work, Mr. Speaker, and we've been helping to bring the West together to defy what I think is completely unacceptable threats and intimidation from the Putin regime against Ukraine. And that's what we've been doing.
Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I mean, that was a disgraceful response. And I have to say to the Prime Minister, he should read the room and it should see some of the faces on his colleagues' faces. He has lost it. Mr. Speaker, we've now reached the ridiculous scenario of a Prime Minister who can't even tell us where he was. He lives in a world where he thinks everything is owed to him, and he never pauses to think what he owes to the public. The Prime Minister is now a dangerous distraction at home and a running joke on the international stage. What does it tell the Prime Minister and the public that on the morning that he has returned from Ukraine, the chair of the Defence Select Committee has submitted a letter of no confidence in him?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, it tells me that it is more vital than ever for the government of this country to get on with the job, deliver our COVID recovery plan, and that is what we are doing.
Virginia Crosby.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to say thank you to the Prime Minister for visiting my Honest Mourne constituency, where he saw firsthand the enormous beneficial impact a new nuclear plant will know it could have if built on Anglesey. Nuclear power must play a role if we are to meet our carbon and net zero commitments, level up and combat rising energy prices. Does my right honourable friend agree that the rapid deployment of nuclear technology must be a priority for this government? And if so, will my right honourable friend commit to financing a nuclear plant at the Wilver site this Parliament?
Well, it was a great joy to visit my honourable friend's constituency, where I believe she is known as Atomic Kitten, or so she informed me, Mr. Speaker, and she outlined in great detail her plans for Wilfer. It's a fantastic vision, a fantastic site, and it remains a very interesting and attractive prospect for new nuclear power.
Colin Eastman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not sure if the Prime Minister has noticed, but while he's been partying, working families in Northern Ireland have lost £1,000 from their universal credit. Their national insurance has been put up by this government, and their energy bills are going through the roof. He's very fond of telling us that we're all in this together. Isn't it the truth, Mr. Speaker, that this Prime Minister has only ever been in it for himself and his rich mates?
No, Mr. Speaker, I'm in it to serve my country and the entire United Kingdom. And I'm also proud that we've had the biggest investment in Northern Ireland since devolution began, and we've cut taxation on universal credit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. South Western Railway has totally cut off Dorset, Somerset, most of Wiltshire and Devon from its direct rail services to London, as well as slashing our service in half, most of which is totally unnecessary. Will my right honourable friends support me and my neighbouring colleagues in getting direct services back to West Dorset and having a timetable that's fit for our region?
Prime Minister.
I want to thank my honourable friend very much for his question, and he knows whereof he speaks. He is an expert in this subject, Mr. Speaker, and he's lobbied very effectively for his constituents and reflected their frustrations. And I'm told that the timetable is expected to return to December 2021 levels from Saturday, the 19th of February.
Alex Sherbel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was out this weekend speaking to a constituent who has a cold and leaky house. She has seen her bills already go up from £100 to £170 a month. The government have failed to insulate her house and failed to control her fuel bills. Bribing people with their own money is no plan. The Prime Minister has no plan to cut VAT, no plan to get the oil and gas industry to contribute. Another constituent who voted for the Prime Minister went further and called him despicable. What use is a Prime Minister who has no plan for families struggling with the cost of living and has lost the trust of the people of this country?
Prime Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, he talks about cutting VAT. I wonder whether he voted for Brexit and our ability to cut VAT. Perhaps he could indicate. Perhaps he could indicate, Mr. Speaker, what we're doing, which we delivered, Mr. Speaker, and whose anniversary we celebrated on Monday. And what we're doing, Mr. Speaker, is, and I sympathise very much with his constituent, and I understand the pressures that people are facing on the cost of living. But what we've got to do is invest in and then protect them, and we're putting £12 billion worth of support and financial help for families in hardship this year, and it's absolutely vital after the pandemic. But the most important thing is to have a jobs-led economic recovery. And in case I failed to make myself clear before you wound me up, Mr. Speaker, that's why we have the fastest economic growth in the G7.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Greater Manchester Mayoral Clean Air Zone scheme Effectively, a congestion charge affecting all 500 square miles of Greater Manchester, including my constituents in Lee, is a job-destroying tax on ordinary working people.
Burnham's fault.
We all want clean air, but the model proposed by Mayor Burnham is unworkable and economically devastating. With charges of £60 per day per lorry driver. Taxis, white van men, even buses will be caught by it. Will the PM intervene to prevent Mayor Burnham from inflicting this disastrous Labour scheme on Greater Manchester?
I know from my own experience how vital it is when you're trying to clean up air in a great city that you do not unjustly penalise business, and particularly small businesses. And it's become clear that the scheme proposed by the Labour Mayor in Manchester is completely unworkable, will do more damage to businesses and residents in Manchester. So we must find an alternative, Mr. Speaker, that doesn't punish local residents. And my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for the Environment, will be saying more about this in the coming days.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the Prime Minister receives a penalty fixed notice for attending a party or hosting a party during lockdown, will he inform the House and will he resign?
Yes, Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, of course I will comply with the law, but I've got to wait for the process to be concluded.
Ian Levy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Since being elected, my fabulous constituency of Blythe Valley is really seeing the green shoots of prosperity. Government support is a green revolution in Blythe Valley. However, with such growth, the increased congestion on our roads, we are in desperate need of upgrades to the road infrastructure. Would my right honourable friend please meet with me to discuss the urgent problem and help Blythe Valley out of the ever-increasing traffic jam? Thank you.
Prime Minister. My honourable friend is the best champion that Blythe could possibly have. He does a quite amazing job, and I want to thank him in particular, Mr. Speaker, for helping to secure the British Volt Gigafactory in Blythe. Absolutely amazing investment, and I understand that, of course, growth and prosperity bring their challenges when it comes to congestion on our roads. We have to tackle that. We're working with the Council on a bid for the Blythe Relief Road, and I'll make sure that my honourable friend gets a meeting with the Transport Secretary to discuss it further.
Rachel Baston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The problem with a distracted Prime Minister is that he makes the wrong choices. While he's been living it up, many of my constituents are living on the breadline as food, energy and taxes shoot up. In York, the rent prices are the highest now in the north and some of the highest in the country. And York is now in the top 10 places in the country where there is a cost of living crisis, pushing my constituents further into poverty and debt. So when is he going to stop protecting himself and start protecting my constituents?
So, Mr. Speaker, one of the first things I did when I became Prime Minister was to ensure that we looked after people on low incomes by increasing local housing allowance, Mr. Speaker, by increasing the living wage, not once but twice, and by record amounts, Mr. Speaker, and of course by doing what we've now done with universal credit. But the most important, I really think the House needs to get this, but the most important thing about the UK economy right now is that we have a strong jobs-led recovery, and that is what is going to drive up wages and drive up productivity and drive up growth, and that is what this government is delivering.
So Desmond Swain.
Will he brief us on his visit to Ukraine?
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable friend very much, and in very briefly, Mr. Speaker, I can tell the House that the mission was to, as I hope everybody will support, was to stand shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine, for the House, for our country to show that we stand with the people of Ukraine and we stand for the sovereign and territorial integrity of Ukraine at a very difficult time, because there are on the borders of Ukraine, as everybody knows, about 125,000 Russian troops massing. The situation is very perilous. And the job of the UK is to lead the West in bringing together the most important countries in creating a package of economic sanctions that will deter President Putin from what I believe would be a disastrous miscalculation, and also to strengthen our support for the Ukrainian people and indeed the Ukrainian army. And we're doing that. We're supplying lethal but defensive weaponry as well as training to the Ukrainians. So that is greatly appreciated. But I must say that the situation remains risky, Mr. Speaker, and it is vital that diplomacy finds a way forward.
Thomas.
Mr. Speaker, on a related issue, after the publication of the Russia report, the Prime Minister claimed tackling illicit finance and driving dirty money and money launderers out of the UK is a priority. His warnings to Mr. Putin of late would surely have carried more bite if he'd actually used the 18 months since publication of the Russia report to legislate for an economic crime act to stop the flow of dirty money for Russia. Why hasn't he prioritised this issue of national security?
Mr. Speaker, contrary to some of the myths that are peddled, this government has come down very hard on dirty money from Russia and everywhere else. That's why we brought in the unexplained wealth orders and indeed China, Mr. Speaker, which they might like to consider. That's why we have sanctions on Russia following what they did in Crimea in 2014. We have Magnitsky sanctions on everybody involved in the poisoning of Alexei Navalny. And to his point, Mr. Speaker, we are bringing forward the economic crime bill so that it will take place, it will be voted on in the third session of this Parliament.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Despite the best efforts of the opposition, 2 years ago this week, this government delivered the democratic decision to leave the European Union. And despite there being a global pandemic in the 2 years since, over 70 free trade agreements have been signed. However, as we recover, there are many more opportunities that can be realised. So will the Prime Minister commit to appointing a minister responsible for realising those Brexit freedoms and benefits that will boost all of our constituencies?
Mr. Speaker, you can hear from the chuntering opposite that they still want to take this thing back. They still want to cancel Brexit, Mr. Speaker. But it was thanks to Brexit very largely that we had the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe, Mr. Speaker, and we've been able to deliver our free ports, Mr. Speaker, and we've been able to do 60 or 70 free trade deals around the world. And yes, Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to anticipate any decisions I may make about the government, but I certainly think it would be a good idea to have a minister driving that post-Brexit agenda.
Thank you. Let's just recap, Mr. Speaker. Before we were told we must wait for the Sue Gray report, then we were told we must wait for the police investigation to conclude. There was no party, and then if there was a party, I wasn't there. Then, well, if there was a party, then all rules were followed. But no one, Prime Minister, believes you. And if any of the above were true, why did Allegra Stratton have to resign?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I explained that sad matter on the floor of the House, and nobody wanted Allegra to resign, and I was very sad that she did.
Simon Jupp.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituent, Ginty Sheeran from Exmouth, has launched a campaign to get a dedicated menopause clinic in Devon. Women in East Devon currently face a 120-mile round trip to get to the nearest specialist menopause clinic. It's not good enough, is it?
No.
Will my right honourable friend outline what steps the government is taking to improve access to menopause services in Devon and the South West?
Prime Minister.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for raising this very important campaign, and we are committed to improving menopause care so that all women can have access to the support they need and to manage the symptoms. Menopause will be a priority within our women's health strategy, and we're committed to establishing a UK-wide menopause task force, Mr. Speaker.
Dame Angela Riedel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the Prime Minister needs
a Metropolitan Police inquiry to tell him whether he attended a party on the 13th of November in his own Downing Street flat. Why should we believe that he's a fit and proper person to have his hand on the button of our independent nuclear deterrent?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I hesitate to remind the right honourable lady, but she campaigned actively to install a Prime Minister who wanted to get rid of our nuclear deterrent altogether.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister, the Government and our NHS have done an amazing job with the vaccine rollout, making it a resounding success. Would my right honourable friend join me in thanking the wonderful NHS workers, volunteers and pharmacies who have worked so hard to help make this possible in Dewsbury, Mirfield, Kirkburn and Denbydale?
Prime Minister. I thank my honourable friend, who does a fantastic job of representing his communities, and I want to thank all of them, Mr. Speaker, everybody involved in the rollout in Dewsbury, in Mirfield, in Kirkburton and in Denbydale, Mr. Speaker, because it was an extraordinary national effort, and anybody who visited a vaccine centre will know that feeling of pride in what was happening, that feeling of energy in a collective effort to make our society and our country literally healthier day by day. And I thank all of them, Mr. Speaker, from the bottom of my heart.
That's the end of PMQ, so those who wish to leave, please do so quietly and quickly.
So there you go, Boris Johnson facing 30 minutes of questions from the House, the first PMQs since the publication of that Great update, as it was called, on the Downing Street lockdown parties. Our deputy political editor, Sam Coates, is in Central Lobby. Let's go straight to Sam and speak to him.